Welcome to the Outsmart Burnout podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Zaria Rubin, a functional medicine doctor, an international speaker, and a burnout badass because I've been there myself. After walking away from my own high-stress medical career, I discovered how to break free from burnout to reclaim my passion, purpose, and joy. And now I'm here to help you do the same. From science-backed tips to time-saving hacks, and hopefully some aha moments that just might change your life. So sit back, relax, and let's do this. What if the path to healing burnout wasn't another week of vacation, but a complete redesign of what work and life looks like? On this week's episode, I'm sitting down with Dr. Kristine Goins, a board-certified integrative adult and pediatric psychiatrist, lifestyle strategist, and the founder of Nomad MD, where she helps physicians who are burned out reimagine medicine on their own terms, working less, living anywhere, and integrating travel, freedom, and well-being into their lives. So whether you're a healthcare professional or simply someone who is done with the daily grind, this episode speaks to reclaiming balance, redefining success, and building a life fueled by purpose, not just the conventional hustle. So I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited for this episode and for this conversation with Dr. Kristine. Welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell us, first of all, where are you calling it from?
At the moment, I'm in Lima, Peru.
My goodness. Wow. And how long have you been stationed there or decided to make that your home base?
It's been 2 months so far. Enjoying the summer.
That's right. Yeah, Peru is definitely very high up on my bucket list. Machu Picchu is like,
Yes.
I had a poster of Machu Picchu on my wall when I was a little kid, and I used to look at
Oh,
it every
wow.
day. I don't know why. I think we got it at some sort of garage sale and
Oh my
it
gosh.
made it to my wall. And so I have often dreamed of going. I was supposed to go for my 50th birthday, but then the pandemic happened. So yeah, that trip has been postponed, but I don't know. I'll let you know if I
You're
stop by. But
due. Yes.
yeah. So, okay. I need to know all of the things. Tell us a little bit about your story, how you got to this place. Like, first of all, I guess, like, what made you choose medicine and psychiatry? And then what made you choose to be a global citizen?
Well, like a lot of doctors, I knew I wanted to be a doctor since I was a little kid. I was 8 when I made that decision.
Girl, I was 5. I
Wha-
know. It goes
Wow.
deep. It goes really deep. Yeah.
It really does. And when I was a teenager is when I decided I wanted to be a world traveler. So I would read these books by an author, Eric Jerome Dickey, and he wrote these urban fiction novels of these Black professional polyglots that would travel all over the world. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to be one of these women. And I didn't quite know, like, how do you blend these two things together? Because I never had seen it done, but I was excited to figure it out and find out. So that was the beginnings of that journey. My mom is a psychologist. I don't like to give her credit, but that's probably why I became a psychiatrist.
We never,
So I
we
grew
never
up,
like
yeah, with
to
a
acknowledge our
no.
parental influences. Yeah.
No, but I mean, I grew up with that,
Yeah, it's kind of in your
a lot of
DNA.
introspection, right? Like it was just a part of, the things that we talked about and cared about as a family. And so I think that that's probably what drew me closer. And when I got into medical school, it was quite obvious that behavioral health and psychiatry, it was just like, there was no question. I thought about surgery for a while. And it's interesting, a lot of people go flip flop between surgery and psychiatry.
Wow.
But I landed in psychiatry. And I would say, even from medical school, I would experience burnout and anxiety and depression like many of us do, just feeling completely overwhelmed, not to the point that like I ever really like sought treatment or help or anything, like just that emotion, the overwhelming nature of just being in a place that only focuses on how well you're doing all the time and really didn't focus much on fun. After the first, after that first year of medical school, you have that summer off. That was my first time ever leaving the country. I left and went to Costa Rica and learned tropical medicine. So I was already trying to like figure out, like, even though this is very overwhelming, even though I still love medicine, how do I blend in that bit of travel?
Girl, same.
And then I
I
tried.
volunteered in Guatemala my first summer after med school. I went and lived in Guatemala and worked in a medical clinic there and learned medical Spanish. And I was, on the
Yes.
same track. I was also thinking of doing like Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. I was gonna do that. I was like, oh, I'll be a doctor in war zones. That'll be great. And then, my nervous system said, nope.
Yeah, not at
But
all.
but yeah, and I mean, when you I just wanted to touch on something you said earlier because it was important. I felt like you said the focus was on doing well, and it wasn't on well-being. That's for sure. It was on
No.
on
No, no, no.
achieving and succeeding and, like, just drive and go, go, go and achieve, succeed, and also just push yourself to the outer limits in terms of sleep deprivation and exposure to truly terrible things that we were seeing day in, day out with absolutely no support. I felt like, and from a mental health perspective, like, working in
Mhm.
the ER was just, it was a nonstop onslaught of trauma, literal and
Yes.
figurative. And as very young women, med students, like we did not have the proper infrastructure or support to handle that. And so my solution to that was to escape, to travel, to leave because I felt like if I could leave, if I could just be somewhere completely different and be someone completely different, including speaking a totally different language because I love languages. So this is like right up my alley. This is totally, so I felt like I had a very similar path in a way. I did not flip-flop between psychiatry and surgery. I felt like my flip-flop was pretty reasonable with psychiatry and neurology. That was like, I was like, I'm
Yes.
doing the brain. Just well, and neurosurgery was kind of up there too, but that was a lot. But okay, back to your
I
story.
love that.
So you're traveling, you're exploring these other cultures for the first time after med school. And was that when you sort of knew that I need to find a way to make this happen?
You know what? I'm a planner like many of us are. And so my plan was, after training, I did adult psychiatry, then I did a fellowship in child and adolescent psychiatry. And I was like, okay, well, after, maybe like 5 years being an attending, then I'll think about, moving abroad or see what that's like. And I'd had this fantasy that after training, that's when life really starts, like you have all this freedom because you're an attending and it's so
Oh,
fun.
girl, yeah. It was the carrot, they kept dangling this sort of carrot in front of you, and it's just out of reach, and
Mhm,
you're like, "Well, pre-med's really hard, but once I get into medical school, I'll be happy, and then med school's brutal, but
mhm.
residency is gonna be where I really get to be a doctor, and then residency is I mean, talk about brutal. Well, but then a fellowship is gonna be great because 'cause you're doing what you love and you're specializing. I also did a fellowship, and fellowship was even more brutal in some ways. And then, "Oh, but once you get to be an attending," and it's like you're living your entire life on some sort of layaway plan that never really comes to fruition.
Never arrives. It never arrives. And
Mm-mm,
actually, I
mm-mm.
thought it was more stressful. Like, I had way more responsibilities.
The buck stops
I
with
had
you.
so many other people, right, under my wing, teaching, being an administrator. Like, it was so much pressure. And it was surprisingly all the things I wanted to do. Like, it wasn't it wasn't like I was just thrown a bunch of things that I didn't care about, but it was working with communities that I really loved and working with students and residents and fellows. But I felt like my entire life was medicine. And I was like, at some point, I have to have space for the other things that I really love, other than, you know, going to yoga at night. Like, I have to be able to travel and experience other cultures and live other places. And so I I was still pushing it back because I was like, "That's not part of this plan. How could I afford something like that? It doesn't really
Mm,
make sense to do right now. That's not responsible, I don't think." And so my body started telling me something different. My body started having chest pains in the middle of the day because I was working at 10 different clinics a week. I started having headaches. I couldn't sleep. I started having whole body tremors that sent me to the neurologist.
my gosh.
And about 60 seconds into this appointment with the neurologist, because at this point, I think I have some kind of deadly, neurodegenerative kind of disease that I can't
Yeah,
get rid of.
that's
And
not
I'm
good.
like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I just know my job is stressful. I don't know where to go next. I don't know what's going on with me. And he just said, stop, 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 stop. I can prescribe you Lexapro right now. And I was just like, I'm so confused. Like, with all the
I'm a
stress,
psychiatrist. Yeah, what is going on?
like, I'm telling you about this stressful job. And he just says to me, but you're not going to quit your job, are you? And I was just like, that's what I have to do. Like, because I know what kind of imbalance this is, and it's not serotonin. It is a life imbalance. And I need to have space for the things that I really love. And so I put in my 4 months at my academic job, and I booked a one-way ticket to Colombia without telling anyone.
Hey, are you listening to the show right now and quietly nodding along, thinking, yeah, this sounds just like me? You're exhausted, but you can't stop. You're not sleeping, and you're definitely never actually resting. You keep telling yourself you just need to get through this next thing, the next deadline, the next quarter, the next season of life, and then you'll slow down, maybe even take a vacation. But that moment never comes. If this sounds like you, I want you to know two things. One, you are not broken. And two, I've got you. I'm Dr. Zaria Rubin, and I created the Burnout Blueprint specifically for this moment. The moment you finally admit something needs to change, but you have no idea where to start, and it feels like there's no time in your busy schedule to fit anything in, even healing. The Burnout Blueprint is a 90-minute session, just you and me, where we figure out exactly what's going on in your nervous system, and I hand you a personalized plan to start feeling like yourself again. No guessing games, no generic advice, just clarity and a real next step. Head over to drzaria.myflowdesk.com. The link is in the show notes. And for a limited time, I'm offering $100 off to the first 10 clients. I can't wait to start this next chapter with you. But I mean, so let's just back up a moment because I think this is so critical what you just described. You just described, I mean, would you have labeled it at the time burnout? I mean, because what you described is burnout,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I also was struggling and suffering with burnout, but I didn't have the vocabulary or the language or the knowledge. I just thought, I don't know. I'm losing my mind. I'm having a nervous breakdown, something. I don't know. The word burnout wasn't there for me. And this was back, it was a while ago, back in the early sort of 2000s or so. it wasn't as popular as it is now, but you, I guess, being a psychiatrist, maybe you had that available to you. And did you think, okay, do I have anxiety? Do I have depression? Do I have burnout? What's going on? Or deep down, you knew.
Yeah, I knew that I was really anxious and I knew that I was starting to feel really depressed. But I knew that it had to do with the circumstances that I had allowed in my life. Like, I knew it was somehow connected to that, and I knew that my body was giving me signs that enough is enough. And I
Yeah.
remember the New Year's, the year that I ended up leaving the country later that year, but that New Year's was 2021. So this is like after COVID. So really
Mm,
we weren't gathering so much.
boy.
I was just with my sister, just her and I alone on New Year's. And I remember saying to her that night, I said, I'm really, really afraid that I'm waiting to get some kind of disease or something that I can't get rid of so that I could have permission to leave.
Girl, I
I
feel
just
you
wanted it to be
so
something
hard.
real,
Yes, I was like,
real.
well, maybe I'm gonna get MS or get cancer or something because I could feel that that's where I was headed. That this level of stress and overwhelm and just was not sustainable physically, mentally, emotionally, physiologically. It was going to lead to something very terrible down the line. It did eventually lead to autoimmune disease in my case because I let it go on, for quite a while. I'm pretty convinced of that. And this was all in the midst of the pandemic. That the added just stress and trauma of being a physician during that time and just realizing, okay, enough is enough. For people who are listening, I think you're in a kind of a unique opportunity to shed some light on this because it's something that comes up often in differentiating between what is depression, what is anxiety, what is burnout, what is sort of circumstantial. How do we help tease that out and piece those puzzle pieces together and decide what the next best course of action is?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think when you're thinking about anxiety, of course, there's so many, all of these things, whether we're talking about burnout or anxiety or depression, there's a constellation of things that are impacting, the symptoms or the feelings that we're having, the emotions, how it's showing up in our body. It could be part of our environment. It could be our social connections. It could be what we're eating, how much we're sleeping. Like everything is involved, how much we're moving our body, the thoughts that we're repetitively thinking, right? I think all of those are involved in each one. I really think is just about the severity. Like when I think about let's say burnout versus depression. I think, a lot of burnout really has to do with the way that we're working and it shows up in our exhaustion. It shows up in how separated we feel, how depersonalized we feel when we're at work versus when we're home. It has a certain flavor of being very connected to the work that we're doing and the environment that we're doing it in and how we're doing it, how we're going about it. Um, but I always felt like I loved medicine. Like I love psychiatry to this day. I just knew that I didn't want to do it 70 hours a week. Like I knew that. Like, so I think is really getting kind of to the nitty gritty of like, is it actually the work that you're doing, or are there just certain aspects of it that are bringing up this emotion, bringing up this exhaustion around how much you do it and how you're doing it versus depression, where really you have an impairment of function, both with depression and anxiety to the point of having a disorder, you have an impairment of function. Most people who are burnt out, they're probably over functioning. They're probably like leading teams.
Right. And this is the thing. It's so interesting to me because part of the definitions of burnout, and if you look at the classical hallmarks that were described by, Freudenberger and Christina Maslach, that they talk about, decreased efficacy and, efficiency and all of these things. But people who are burned out tend to be perfectionists, high achievers,
Yeah.
overachievers. So even when we are working at a decreased capacity or decreased function, we're still functioning
We're
pretty
excelling.
darn high. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
We're
I was
excelling. I was literally burnt
the
out
top of
and
my field,
running,
winning awards,
Yeah.
all these things. Yeah. And you're like, what is this? Is the math is not mathing here. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, you really nailed it when you said that, like, I love psychiatry, I love medicine. I don't love it 70, 80, 90 hours a week. I mean, that was sort of the crux of it. It was like, you know, there was this trade-off that seemed to be required in medicine was you had to kind of sign in blood and be like, in exchange for my life, I will have the privilege of serving and healing and being this incredible, force for good and for healing and really being able to help people, which is what I loved. And I loved the problem solving and the puzzle piecing of neurology is really complicated and figuring out exactly what's wrong with this person and then how I can't really help them. But the figuring it out part was really cool.
Yeah.
But the trade-off, I just kept waiting and waiting too for like, well, the more I sacrifice myself, the happier I'll be, right? Right? Where is that part? And that's not how it works. And that's like how you have everything kind of backwards.
Yeah. But I think that we're purposefully trained in that way. I think it is all quite intentional for us to have those implicit beliefs kind of seep in and for us to carry them out, even when we do have more autonomy as attendings than we did as trainees. And I think it takes a lot of intentionality to unlearn all of those beliefs, all of those system rules that we were taught. And so that's what I spent my
Well,
time
the
doing.
system's gonna it's gonna chew you up and spit you out. And it's gonna extract the maximum it can from you. I mean, it is not
Uh-huh.
interested in your health and well-being. Although I hope the system is slowly realizing that doctors are burning out at record rates. They are leaving medicine at record rates. And like something has to change because if we just keep abusing our physicians, we're not gonna have enough. And we're already at a shortage in many places. And with everything going on right now.
I don't think they mind, if you want me to be quite honest.
Yeah, yeah.
If you want me
The
to just I'm
it's
gonna tell the
honest
truth, I don't think they
podcast here.
mind.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, they don't.
No,
It's all about the
because
bottom line.
other providers are cheaper. Other providers are cheaper than physicians
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
And you can see it in so many systems that, I think we need other types of providers. I think physicians are not meant to do it all, but I do think physicians are really important to healthcare teams. But I don't think the system has any true incentive to support the well being of physicians.
No, no, I agree. I mean, I think it has to change. I think it's probably gonna take a while. And so in that interim, while we're trying to effectuate this systemic change, it's really hard. We as individuals sometimes have to take matters into our own hands. I ended up leaving medicine and doing other things. And then, of course, working in the corporate world, which is not much better. And now, working for myself, which is a lot better, although it's still 24/7 work, but it's on your own terms and it's in your own way. So tell us a bit about how you discovered the secret to working and living abroad and tell us about Nomad MD and all of this magic that you've
Yes.
created.
So before I left, I had taken maybe back in like 2019, I had taken a trip to Thailand with my sister for like 10 days. And I was sitting on Kata Beach and writing in my journal. And I said, this is supposed to be my real life. Like the way that I work back in the US, that's supposed to be my vacation life. That's supposed to be something I do like 2 weeks a year. And this is my regular life. And I kept that belief. I held on to that image. And so when I left the country, I decided to flip it. I said, I'm going to work 2 days a week. I'm going to be off 5 days a week. And so I just kept that. That's been my life. It's really given me so much more time for my passions, and I really love wine. So, my wine education, to learn languages like you. I love
Yeah.
languages. To learn languages, to learn more about other cultures, and to still practice psychiatry, but just to do it the way that I want to do it, one day a week, the way that I like to do it. And in the midst of that, learning how to do that, learning how to really leverage my skills, recognizing that they are transferable and that they are mine and that I can utilize them from wherever in the world that I am. I don't have to be in any particular place, in any hospital or any clinic in order to bring value and to serve the way that I want to. And when I recognized that, other people started noticing. So I would have friends calling me like, my friend's in OB and she really wants to work from abroad too. Do you think you can help her? I'm like, yeah, have her call me. And then after doing this for a while, I'm like, I should be getting paid for this. Like I should not be doing this for free. So that's how Nomad MD eventually got created.
So, gosh, just so many thoughts. But do you think that sometimes when we get stuck in these roles and these jobs and these careers, it's just kind of a failure of imagination that we're just so used to doing things the way they've always been done that we can't even conceive of a different way? I mean, you sort of said you're on the beach and thinking, like, this needs to be my real life. I often thought that when I was traveling and on vacation, I'd be like, this needs to be my life, like traveling, meeting other people, speaking other languages, eating incredible food from different cultures. Like, I was like, this is what I'm made to do. But I struggled to translate that, but you somehow were able to do it. Now I'm so intrigued because obviously with the advent of telemedicine, this is all more possible. And of course, psychiatry really lends itself really well to telemedicine. I mean, I've done it myself, and obviously you don't have to be in the same room as another person. But for other fields of medicine, like you mentioned OB, I'm so intrigued as to like how do people make it work remotely?
Yeah. And I get this question all the time. So I love this question. There is not one medical specialty that cannot digitize their medical expertise and work remotely. So I've had dermatologists who have telederm practices. There's derms who make more money teaching other people how to do Botox online than they were making being in the office. Same thing with surgeons who really kind of delve into their consultative mode and help other industries, other clinics, other surgical centers with, protocols and surgical techniques, and anesthesiologists that I've worked with who focus on pre and post op and those type of consultations and work. So there's always aspects of our work that we can do remotely. And for some, it's just taking their skills and leveraging them different ways. I've worked with radiologists who consult for AI companies. It just depends on what your interests are and what you love to do. I work with a lot of primary care physicians who their real passion is lifestyle medicine, food as medicine, and other types of niches and areas where they really don't need to be in. I think with the advent, even when you look at things like, you know, hospital at home. There's just so much technology that allows for a physician to be remote and still be able to leverage their skills and provide really good care, even if there's different ways to do it. They can do it in a hybrid. Some people really do love to be in person. I've worked with like ER physicians, right? And they want that hybrid. They want to be in the
Yeah.
midst in the ER, but just not all the time, right? And they want
Right.
to be able to consult. They consult on urgent care issues and when people are traveling and a lots of other really creative things around their expertise.
Wow. I love it. It's so fascinating. So, how do you choose where to go? How long to stay there? How do you set it up? What about things like, visas and length of stay and all that stuff? Like, how does that factor into it? I'm so curious.
Well, again, I'm a planner. I'm a planner. So I pretty much know at least 6 months or so in advance, like, where I wanna be. Like, this summer, I'll be summering in Italy, and so I usually Yeah, yeah. Next summer will be Greece. But I usually stay about 3 to 6 months in a country. And with that kind of cadence, most of the time I don't need visas. If so, I'll get them ahead of time because I plan. I think if you don't care about your living situation, you probably have more flexibility. But I care a lot about where I live. And so I need that time to make sure it's a place with a really beautiful view and how close is it to the ocean and the mountains and all of those things. So I wanna be close to those things. I spend a lot of time in wine regions because wine is a really big passion of mine, and I follow the sun, so that means I have to be in the Southern Hemisphere when it's winter in the North.
Oh, girl, you're making me want to leave rainy, cold Oregon right now. Let me tell you, I'm like, oh my goodness. So, of course, the question that's probably on everyone's mind, you don't have kids, right? And if you do
Don't.
have kids, how do you make this work, especially ones that are in school?
So that is a really interesting question. I'm child free by choice, but a lot of my clients have kids. And because I'm a nomad and I'm part of a lot of nomadic communities, a lot of nomads have kids too. And there are whole nomadic communities that are just communities of families. And so I don't want anyone to think that having children, them being school aged, means that they can, one, become a nomad if that's something they want to do, but otherwise just travel and just have that location flexibility with their work because there is so much good that comes from exposing your children to different cultures and to the problem solving and the exploration, the adventure, the learning experiences of travel and being in different cultures and countries. And so I think it's a really, really great benefit for parents, especially. And so I have a lot of clients who have families who are able to do it all the same. I think the only difference is that we also focus on the educational piece and the community piece for the children just to make sure that they also have community and usually to be honest, a better learning experience than being in a
Yeah.
traditional school in the
Yeah.
US.
No, I do think travel and exposure to other cultures is so important for kids. And we've taken our kid, she's been to I don't know how many countries already. And we're going all the way to a very far off continent. Soon we're going to Australia in a couple months for a couple weeks. And yeah, and her school is really good about allowing her to miss school. We went to France for a couple weeks last year and she missed a bunch of school and their attitude was, well, she's probably learning more in Paris than in school.
Yes,
And that's the case. I mean, those are memories and experiences that you can't really replicate in that exposure to culture and art and food and architecture and just a different way of being and living. I think if we all had that opportunity and if kids had that opportunity, we would be living in a much better world than we are currently. So, I'm all for it.
completely.
But so if folks are feeling like this sounds intriguing, but it sounds overwhelming and it's just not possible, or, I hear this a lot actually in my practice. And it's something that I work with folks a lot is when I try to help people to see what is possible and they just sort of say, "Oh no, I can't work less or I can't quit
Yeah,
my job or I can't
yeah,
find time to work out or I can't, do this. We're all guilty. I've been guilty of that too, but it really is not about you can't. It's like are you willing to figure it out and explore the possibilities because they're there. I mean, there's very little that is can't. We put a man on the moon. So it is all about how much are you willing to expand your mind and there's so many closed doors. I feel like, well, it's like, okay, well, that's ruled out because we can't do that. It's like, really? Are you sure? You how come? Why? And so if people
Right.
are considering this in any small way, what would be their first step or next step or ways to get in touch with you, et cetera? What do you recommend if someone in the back of their mind is listening to this
Yeah.
episode and saying to themselves, I think I might need to do this?
You know what? I would say whatever doubts that you have, flip them around because that's probably what's true. Like, for instance, my doubt was, how am I going to be able to afford this? And what I started asking myself was, what if deciding to do this is what gets you to financial independence quicker? How would that be possible? I think it's just kind of changing our doubts into recognizing like this could be actually the thing that gets me what I want quicker, faster, with less stress, with better health outcomes, all
Yeah.
of it at the end. And that's what my
Yeah.
clients find when they decide to open up their minds to this
Wild.
possibility.
Every obstacle is an opportunity, right? So if
Absolutely.
people want to get in touch with you and possibly work with you, what should they do? We're going to put everything in the show notes, of course, but where can people find you? Online, of course.
They can find me on Instagram at the Nomad MDs, on Facebook at the Nomad MDs, and at my website, thenomadmd.com.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm just so it's been such an amazing conversation this whole time. I am dreaming about travel and where we're gonna go next. I think we're gonna go to Japan. My kid is really into Japan and Japanese culture, so that's on the list somewhere. Of course, Peru is on my list. I gotta get there. I don't know if you're probably not gonna be there by the time I make it, but maybe one of these days we can all meet up somewhere. You'll
Yes.
have a retreat for female nomadic MDs somewhere in the world.
Yes.
Sign me up because I truly think that travel is, it's life changing and it is something that really has the potential to change your life and expand
Uh-huh.
your worldview and your perspective. And it's just something that you know, we should all have the opportunity to experience. So, if you're listening to this episode and you're getting wanderlust and you're excited to perhaps share this with somebody, share Dr. Christine's courageous and independent and fabulous journey. Maybe it'll inspire someone that you know. So, share this episode with a friend, give us a like, give us a review. It always helps us, in the podcast ranking and helps people find the show. It's so important because we really want to continue bringing you guys these amazing stories and strategies for living with intention and without burnout. That's what we're here to do. So remember, until next time, burnout is not your destiny, it's your wake up call.